Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about the keys for triathlon off-season training, and I'll be telling you about how I'm implementing those in my training this year. Yes, welcome back to the channel. I'm Josh, a fourth year medical student here in London and a GB age group triathlete. On this channel we talk all things triathlon and triathlon training, so if you like any of that, please hit subscribe. We also do shoe reviews, bike reviews, any of that kind of things. That's all here. But today we're talking about the triathlon off season. What is off season? What can you use it for? And what will I be using my off season for this year? So let's start off by just defining what I mean and what most people mean by the triathlon off season. And simply put, this is the time in between you finished your last race of the previous season, so for me right now 2021, and a little bit before your first race of the season in 2022, your next racing season. This might be a couple of weeks, this might be a couple of months. It depends how long you want for triathlon specific or distance specific training. This period generally lasts over the winter months. So for me, I'm starting now at the beginning of November is when I officially classed myself in a triathlon off season, and I'll probably be going through until mid to late February as I'm racing first in April. This period gives us a great opportunity to reflect on the previous year of training and racing and understand how we can improve both as a triathlete and as a general endurance athlete. Choosing what you use the triathlon off season for is a very personal thing, and all of these are things that I know that either other athletes that I personally know or who post on YouTube do, or things that I found work for myself. If there's anything that I miss out that you really like doing in your off season, leave me a comment below. You never know, you might change how I'm training this year. Personally, I think the most important part of off season training is to focus on your weakness. By reflecting on how the year has gone, maybe where you've struggled or where you weren't able to put as much training time as you wanted, you can kind of understand where you might be able to make the most benefit and the most time up in those races through your off-season training. There's very little point in improving on your swim, for instance, if you're already the best swimmer in your age group. This is simply going to give you very marginal gains, whereas if you have a big weakness on your run because you only started running in the last year or two, that might be somewhere to really kind of hone in and go, okay, this is what's going to pay off the most when it comes to my next season of racing. Now, generally, this is swimming for most people, as it's very difficult to improve significantly during the triathlon season if you haven't been a swimmer for a long period of time. So a lot of people tend to put in a lot of time into swimming, and that's something that I'll be doing, which we'll be talking about later. However, it can be any part of triathlon, even your transitions or just your general strength. Whatever it is, if you think you're weak at it, it's definitely the time to start improving on that before you go back into your full swing of training next year. It's also important to think about improving yourself more generally as an endurance athlete and not specifically as a triathlete. For example, strength and conditioning sessions in the gym where you're both lifting heavy weights but also lifting lighter weights to improve your endurance work and your resistance to injury can be really beneficial. This will make you a physically stronger athlete, so you'll be more resistant to high training loads in the future, and hopefully you'll be less likely to get injuries more frequently when it comes to that full-time triathlon training. However, with all this training talk, it is important to take some time off. We spend so much of our lives doing training and not doing other things when it comes to the main bulk of our season. Personally, I was training upwards of 14 or 15 hours this summer when I was right smack in the middle of trying to qualify for age group world championships. Training that much means you do make sacrifices, whether that's going to the coffee shop with friends, going to the pub, getting lunch, whatever it may be. I'm sure that you've had to say no to some opportunities with friends and families due to wanting that extra training session or needing to rest from a specifically hard training session that morning, the night before, whatever it may be. Taking a step back and reducing the amount of training you're doing not only gives your body some time to recover physically and get rid of some of that stress and strain that you've been putting it through, but it also gives your mind and your social life time to recover as well. I can't recommend just doing the things that you enjoyed and you missed out on because of your triathlon training. Coffee stops with friends, pub visits, lunches, whatever it may be, going to the cinema, whatever it may be, go and do those things, because when it comes back around to racing period next year, you're not going to want to do that as much. And so by doing it now, you won't regret quite as much missing out on these things in the future. The best way that I can describe what you should use your triathlon off season for is some productive time to focus on what you think your weakest part of triathlon is before you get back into the meat, the real kind of core of your triathlon training when your upcoming races are just around the corner next year. So now let's apply the principles that we've spoken about in this video to me and what I'll be doing in my off season this year. First and foremost, I'll be taking some time off. I haven't really started proper off season training until November this year, having had my last race in September, so it's taken me almost 4 weeks to properly get back into training. But that's okay, it's what I found that I need to do personally. I spent that time off proper training, spending more time with Danny, spending more time with my family, going to see friends, seeing a little bit more of the UK, and just trying to enjoy myself a little bit more than I otherwise would have done, which is my sole focus is on triathlon training. I've also started to incorporate more group training sessions into my training, which I'm sure you've noticed from the videos on the channel. But now let's break down my focus on each of the 3 sports within triathlon and what I'll be doing for those in the off season. First up is swimming, and I have to admit I'm not the weakest swimmer in my age group. I have some really good swimming times this year, but I know I still have a lot in me, and I really am putting quite a heavy focus on my swimming this off season. I'm not someone who grew up swimming very much. I took quite a lot of time off through my childhood and teenage years from swimming, and in the summer I was only swimming 3 times a week anyway, so I really feel like there's the potential to become one of, if not the best swimmers in my age group. My aim really is to be a front pack or front of the front pack swimmer when it comes to age group world championships later on in 2022. I want to do this because I think it's going to set up my races in the best way possible. Being calm and relaxed and knowing that I'm putting myself in a good position from the swim will just make me feel more secure when it comes to that bike and run leg. I'll be doing a full video on how I'm going to be improving my swimming this off season, so please consider hitting that subscribe button if you want to find out exactly how I'll be doing that. But simply put, I'm going to be increasing my swim volume per session, my number of sessions per week, and trying to swim with some better swimmers, so I know that I'm not relaxing too much when it comes to the pool, as I find it can be really difficult to be able to judge exactly the pace that you're going at during a swim interval. On to cycling next, and I really did think I was quite a strong cyclist. However, having joined my university cycling club, I found out there are some significantly better people in it, and man, the power numbers they put out is really impressive. Personally, I think that I can improve in 2 main areas which I'll be focusing on through the off season. The first is obviously just my raw power, and that will come from cycling more and doing hillier rides and all of that kind of stuff, and spending a little bit of time in the gym, which we'll talk about towards the end. But it's not just that pure power. I want to be able to put that power out for longer, because I often find myself fading towards the end of a bike leg, especially if I've paced it poorly towards the start. Focusing on longer, punchier group rides will hopefully enable me to really push myself harder and further than I have been in training before, and hopefully that will convert over to my racing. I also need to be in a more aero position come next year and be better at putting out power in that aero position. So hopefully I'll be getting a bike fit at some point, and I'll be looking at doing more training in the TT position on my indoor trainer. So definitely hit subscribe if you want to see my progress and my journey as I try to put out more TT power. When it comes to running, I think I'm like a lot of people in that I came to the sport relatively late, and because of that my running prowess isn't amazing. Even considering that I am going to be taking some time off running, I just feel like the amount of impact and the amount of force that my knees, my ankles and my hips get from running really isn't going to be sustainable if I keep up running the same volume that I've been doing the whole time. Previously, I was running an average of 5 runs per week and averaging around 55 to 65 kilometers per week. I'm going to be scaling that back a fair bit. I'm aiming to run 4 times a week averaging 45 to 50 kilometers per week. By scaling back a little bit, I'll be able to focus more on my swimming and my cycling, and I'm hoping to gain a lot of base endurance and base fitness from those two sports. Therefore, I'm cutting a lot of the fluff, a lot of the bloat out of my running plan from last year. My 4 runs will generally come into these 4 areas. I have one easy run, which will generally be shorter, and really just to ensure that I'm not taking any long breaks from running. I'll also then have a tempo run. This won't be anything crazy, but it will be starting at an easier pace, building up to a tempo, almost a threshold pace throughout the session, and trying to keep it really consistent with a fast foot turnover. I'll have one other session, probably hill sessions or some shorter repeats, really focusing on run power and run strength. And then I'll have the most important workout of the week, the long run. And I'm really going to be cutting a lot of the bloat. So there's going to be no easy long runs from now on. Although the first, 15 minutes might be more relaxed as I ease into it and warm up. From that point onwards, I'm going to try and negative split all my long runs and ensure they are of really good quality rather than just getting the quantity in every week. And then finally, I'm also going to be working on my strength training for triathlon. And this is a really difficult thing to focus on because I don't necessarily have a lot of time outside of the training that I would normally be doing around the off season. This is the first time I've really thought about doing a lot of strength training in my off season, and so trying to fit it in is definitely going to be difficult, but I want to give it a go. The things I definitely will be committing to doing are 4 core workouts at home. These will be 20 to 30 minutes. Being able to do them from home makes it so much easier time-wise. I don't have to go to the gym. I can do them here, and I think that would be really beneficial as I often lack a bit of core strength when it comes to the later portions of the bike and run in a full triathlon. I'll also be making sure that I'm stretching and foam rolling every day, as I really want to prevent any injuries going forward, and by getting into that habit now, hopefully that'll carry on in the main triathlon season for next year. And then I'd like to be going to the gym at least once per week going forward, although this might just end up being once a week, we'll have to see. This is likely to be a full body split, so I'll be doing both upper body and lower body throughout those workouts, simply because I don't have the time or the energy really to do different splits depending on the days that I'm going, because I'm not going for all those days. I'll be focusing on most of my compound lifts, so squats, deadlifts, bench presses, overhead presses, some rows, things like that, to get the most time efficiency from my gym sessions. So in conclusion, for my off season, I'll be spending more time with family and friends to recover from what's been a pretty intense season. I'll be becoming a pro swimmer, fingers crossed. I'll be learning from the best cyclists I know how to put out more power and stay aero. I'll be cutting out all the fluff from my run training, allowing me to reduce my volume and recover a little bit more. And then I'll also be trying to get to the gym at least once per week to focus on becoming a stronger and more well-rounded endurance athlete. But that's it for this video. If you've enjoyed it, on screen now there is a playlist of all my other triathlon training guides where you can learn from all of my triathlon experience. And if you really did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel to stay tuned for my progression over the off season. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.